Imagine waking up in a world where a single bite turns people into ruthless monsters, where every city has fallen and humanity is on the brink of extinction. Now imagine that the only hope of saving the human race isn't a soldier, isn't a scientist, but a mysterious little girl. She looks innocent. She smiles like any other child. But behind those eyes lies a secret so terrifying, it could either save humanity or replace it forever. Every morning, Melanie strapped her limbs tightly to her wheelchair. She then secured the collar around her neck. Even with these precautions, the soldiers picking her up never relaxed for a moment. They carefully checked Melanie's restraints to ensure everything was secure before wheeling her out of her room. If any soldier got too close to Melanie, Sergeant Parks would sharply reprimand them. There were more than 20 children in the base, just like Melanie, each of whom had to be securely restrained before leaving their rooms. Two armed soldiers escorted each child at all times. Only after confirming the children posed no immediate threat did their teacher enter the classroom. The reason for such extreme precautions was simple. These kids were second-generation zombies, carrying the zombie virus within them. Outside the base, zombies had already taken over the world. Survivors had established various safe bases for humanity. During the fight against zombies, scientists discovered these special children, who had been infected while still in their mother's wombs. They looked exactly like normal kids, but once they caught the scent of a human, they immediately became dangerously aggressive. Yet these children represented humanity's greatest hope. Scientists believed they could develop a vaccine from studying these half-human, half-zombie children. After years of observation, researchers found something surprising. Children raised with human education could think and behave normally. Some, like Melanie, even proved exceptionally intelligent. Melanie's favorite teacher was Helen. Helen was the only person who didn't treat the children as freaks. Likewise, Melanie was Helen's favorite student. A simple essay by Melanie would move Helen to tears. Because of this bond, Helen often overlooked Melanie's zombie nature. But whenever that happened, Sergeant Parks would remind her harshly through experiments. Without the protective blocker gel, just a small exposure of human skin could trigger the children's bloodthirsty instincts instantly. But Melanie was the exception. She managed to suppress her zombie instincts during these experiments. Then one day, Melanie realized something strange. It was past her usual wake-up time, yet no soldiers came to get her. She didn't understand why. Eventually, she heard soldiers outside again. This time, however, they took her somewhere she'd never been before. With growing anxiety, Melanie was shocked to find herself outside the base for the first time. Melanie, who had spent her entire life confined in the base, saw the outside world for the first time, her eyes filled with anxiety and fear. The base was completely surrounded by countless zombies. More zombies continued pouring in without end. Soldiers desperately fired their guns, trying to hold them back. But it was clear the zombies would soon break through. Time was quickly running out. Soon, Melanie was taken to the lab. Compared to the other zombie children, Melanie was the most human-like. Dr. Caldwell decided to dissect Melanie, hoping her body held the key to developing a vaccine. To keep Melanie calm, Caldwell quickly injected her with a tranquilizer. Soon, Melanie felt herself drifting into unconsciousness. Then, Caldwell and her assistant carefully placed Melanie on the operating table, tightly securing her with straps. Just as the experiment was about to begin, Helen suddenly burst into the lab. She tried to stop Caldwell from carrying out the cruel procedure, but Caldwell mercilessly sprayed pepper spray directly into Helen's face. The burning sensation instantly disabled Helen. Two soldiers quickly entered and dragged her away. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the base. Selkirk, however, didn't notice a zombie approaching from behind. Caldwell reacted quickly, grabbing a fire extinguisher and smashing it onto the zombie. Although Caldwell successfully fought off the attack, her hand was severely cut by the glass. Even worse, Selkirk, who had been bitten, started rapidly transforming into a zombie. She left Melanie alone on the operating table. Fortunately, Melanie carried the same virus within her, making the zombie uninterested in her. Melanie took advantage of this opportunity. She grabbed a scalpel, cut through her restraints. The moment Melanie stepped outside, she froze. The entire base had already been overrun by zombies. In the chaos, Melanie saw Helen. Seeing this enraged Melanie completely. She lunged at the soldier and began biting him furiously. Tasting blood for the first time made her feel intoxicated. She fainted. When Helen regained her senses, she quickly scooped Melanie into her arms. Helen closed her eyes in despair, awaiting death. Suddenly, an armored vehicle raced toward them. Helen jumped onto the vehicle, still clutching Melanie. They had narrowly escaped death. Inside the vehicle was Dr. Caldwell. A soldier named Gallagher quickly noticed Melanie as well. Parks immediately wanted to eliminate this potential threat. Helen swiftly shielded Melanie with her own body. Caldwell also stepped forward to intervene. Melanie was now her only remaining experimental subject. With no other choice, Parks reluctantly backed down. But as a precaution, they strapped Melanie to the roof of the vehicle and put a bite-proof mask on her face. They headed for a lighthouse located 100 miles from the base. Another team of theirs was stationed there. However, when they reached a forest, the vehicle ran out of fuel. Forced by circumstance, they continued on foot toward the lighthouse. By evening, they reached the outskirts of a city. Parks raised his binoculars to look ahead. The city was swarming with zombies. But luckily, they were all dormant. At that moment, a zombie mother was pushing a stroller through the crowd of the undead. Out of curiosity, Dr. Caldwell stretched out her foot to stop the stroller. She saw a baby squirming nonstop. Carefully, she lifted the blanket, but she was startled to find a rat feasting on rotten flesh inside. The noise immediately caught the attention of the mother zombie. Luckily, Parks reacted fast and shot the zombie. Even though his gun had a silencer, the sound still alerted more zombies. The group had no choice but to fight their way out while retreating quickly. Soon, they found shelter inside an old crumbling building. To make sure it was safe, Parks and Helen decided to split up. They searched the building for zombies and also looked for supplies and food. Meanwhile, Caldwell and Melanie stayed where they were. Melanie couldn't hold back her curiosity and asked Caldwell about her past. Caldwell didn't hide anything and told her everything. She explained that when the zombie virus first broke out, many pregnant women got infected, but their unborn babies kept growing. The fetuses devoured their mother's organs from the inside and crawled out of their bodies. Maybe because of their strong adaptability, these babies' brains somehow coexisted with the virus. As a result, they became immune and still kept their human thoughts and emotion. Caldwell said that once a vaccine was developed, they could finally defeat the virus. Then, all remaining survivors would be saved. Hearing this, Melanie fell silent, deep in thought. The next morning, they got ready to leave, but they found a huge crowd of zombies completely blocking their way. Trying to sneak through like yesterday was almost impossible. While everyone felt helpless, Melanie volunteered to lure the zombies away, but Caldwell strongly disagreed because Melanie was her only test subject. If Melanie ran off, her research would be ruined. However, Parks looked into Melanie's sincere eyes. In the end, he decided to let her try. Before leaving, Helen thoughtfully helped Melanie change into fresh clothes. Then, Melanie walked straight into the zombie crowd. Because she also carried the virus in her body, the zombies had no interest in her. After Melanie walked out of the zombie crowd, she soon spotted a stray cat on the road. Her zombie instincts instantly kicked in. She chased after it and had a big feast. After that, she continued wandering outside. It was her first time exploring the outside world, and everything fascinated her. Before long, she followed another scent and found a teddy dog. But this time, she was full and still kept her mind clear. So she quickly grabbed the teddy and carried it away. She brought it back to the zombie crowd and put it down. The smell of fresh meat woke the zombies at once. They immediately chased after the poor teddy. In the end, she successfully lured the zombies away from that area. From that moment on, Melanie earned everyone's trust. Whenever they explored new places, she went first. Only after she made sure it was safe, the others would follow. Soon, they arrived at another city. But strangely, there was not a single zombie in sight. When they reached the city center, they were completely shocked. A skyscraper, hundreds of feet tall, was fully covered with plants. Beneath it lay piles of thousands of zombie corpses. The plants had actually grown out of the zombies' bodies. Caldwell immediately realized the virus had entered its second stage. It no longer just lived inside humans. Now, it was actively spreading. Once the fruits on these plants ripened, the virus inside would be released into the air. At that point, anything that could breathe would be doomed. Caldwell picked one of the fruits to take back for research. On the way, Melanie curiously asked why the fruit would cause the end of the world once it ripened. Caldwell patiently explained it to her. She also showed Melanie how tough the fruit shell was. Unless there was a fire or some extreme condition, it was very hard to break them open. As they kept walking, they discovered a vehicle that looked like an RV. Caldwell was overjoyed because she knew it was actually a mobile laboratory. They went inside and found the equipment still in perfect condition. Although the vehicle couldn't start, at least it could serve as a temporary base for them. Thanks to the solar power system, they didn't need to worry about electricity for now. The only problem was the lack of food. Parks immediately tried to contact the lighthouse for rescue, but there was no response from the other end. Left with no choice, Gallagher decided to go out and search for supplies. Meanwhile, Melanie started breathing heavily. Her body was reminding her that she needed to eat. To prevent her from losing control, Parks allowed her to go out and find food on her own. Soon, she caught a pigeon on a rooftop and devoured it hungrily. But Gallagher was not so lucky. Not only did he find nothing, but something had started following him. At the same time, Melanie sensed danger. Following the scent, she arrived at a house. Inside, she discovered a group of zombie children like herself. Suddenly, one of the zombie kids ran in hurriedly and whispered something to their leader. Right after that, all the zombie children rushed out together. Melanie guessed that they were heading out to hunt. She quickly returned to the lab and told Parks what she had seen. Gallagher was still outside looking for food. At that moment, Gallagher found a can of food on the street. Then he saw a second can and a third one. Following the trail of cans, Gallagher reached the entrance of a supermarket. Because the gap between the doors was too narrow, he had to leave his gear, including his radio, outside. He had no idea he was walking right into a carefully set trap. Since his radio was outside, he missed Park's urgent call. Inside, Gallagher found plenty of food, but as soon as he turned around, he saw a kid holding a huge rat. In the next second, more zombie children appeared before him. Before Gallagher could react, they all pounced on him and started biting him wildly. By the time Melanie and the others arrived, all they saw was a chewed-up corpse. Suddenly, Melanie realized something. She urged everyone to leave quickly, but as she peeked out from the supermarket, they were already surrounded by the zombie children. Parks instinctively raised his gun, but Melanie stopped him. She knew these kids just wanted to survive. She wanted to protect her own kind in her own way. Just then, a female zombie charged at her. Melanie knocked it down with a single punch. They fought like wild beasts, relying on instinct and intimidation. Melanie tried to scare them into backing off, but their leader, armed with a bat, rushed to attack. Melanie easily dodged every swing because she had received human combat training. With a quick move, she trapped the leader. Then she picked up the zombie's bat and struck the leader repeatedly until he died. The brutal scene completely shocked the other zombie children. They were terrified by what they saw. The others finally understood. Melanie was proving her strength to earn the respect of her wild kind. Without their leader, the zombie children scattered like loose sand. Melanie successfully led Parks and Helen out of danger. They safely returned to the lab, but found the door wide open. As soon as they entered, they saw Caldwell wearing a gas mask and pointing a gun. Before they could react, they were knocked out by gas. Caldwell had secretly released sleeping gas into the air. Her wound had become infected, and she knew she didn't have much time left. She had to dissect Melanie to create the vaccine, but when she turned around, she was shocked to see Melanie standing up. Because of her special zombie body, Melanie didn't need to breathe as much as humans. Realizing her plan was exposed, Caldwell tried to persuade Melanie. She said if they made the vaccine, Melanie would become a hero for all humanity, and Helen would never turn into a monster. Melanie hesitated for a moment, but then she thought of the zombie children outside. What had they done wrong? They only wanted to live, too. Ever since she was born, no one had truly accepted them, except Helen. Humans only wanted to use them to eliminate zombies. This world already belonged to the dead. Why should they sacrifice themselves for humans? If humans treated their lives like nothing, then maybe zombies should rule this planet. Melanie told Caldwell to stay inside the lab. Then she walked out alone. Caldwell understood what Melanie was about to do and immediately chased after her. But she didn't get far before being surrounded by the zombie children. She gave a helpless smile, accepting her fate. Meanwhile, Melanie reached the giant plant. Without hesitation, she lit it with a match. The fire quickly spread upward. The zombie fruits exploded one after another. Countless zombie viruses were released into the air ahead of time. Soon the virus would cover the entire Earth. After finishing everything, Melanie headed back to the lab. On the way, she ran into Parks, who had come to find her. It was clear he had already inhaled the virus. Melanie kept apologizing to him, but it was too late. Parks knew he would soon turn. He pulled out his gun and begged Melanie to end his life. He didn't want to become a monster. In the end, Melanie tearfully agreed. In the final scene, Helen woke up in the lab. She became the last human on Earth. She resumed her role as a teacher and began educating the zombie children, passing on human history as much as she could. And so, a brand new civilization was about to be born.